Serious, drug dealers of Reddit, have you ever called CPS on a client? If so, what's the story? When I was selling to her, a lady shook her crying baby in front of me. I wigged out, took the baby, dumped $500 worth of cocaine and heroin and called 911 from my car. She didn't put up a fight until the cops came to arrest her. She tried to sue me for kidnapping. Definitely not the best strategy for me. I was 18 and addicted pretty bad, but when the baby saw a doctor under state care, he was covered in bruises, a couple of burns, and had 2 broken ribs already. I'm convinced she would have killed him. He's 10 now and happy and thriving. The whole experience, and legal battle when she tried to have me charged with kidnapping, is how I got sober. I think you and that baby both saved each other. I pulled up to this woman's house. I was 19 at the time. She was a regular and often asked if I had any coke. I was strictly a marijuana dealer. When I walked into her house, she had 2 babies, twins. Female dealer here. When I asked to use the bathroom, she said she didn't have running water due to money issues. There was a 5-gallon bucket in the bathroom to pee and poop in. This bucket was extremely full. Not to mention the overflowing trash cans and tied-off trash bags in the living room. I couldn't believe how gross her house was. I panicked. I called CPS and told them I was a family friend. I drove my car down the road a little and waited for the cops to show up. I watched them pull the woman out to the house in cuffs. She turned out to have heroin in her house. I still wonder about those twins today. Not sure if this counts, but in the late 1990s, I used to sell reefer part-time while I was in college. One of my regular customers turned his sister onto me. She called for a delivery. No big deal. I went there one time. She had 3 little kids. Like a couple toddlers and an infant. Her house was full of cockroaches. I was disgusted. I called CPS. Not because of the drugs and babies, but because of how fucking filthy that house was. It caused a lot of problems for her and her boyfriend. They were in the system for a long time. Not sure how it all turned out. But, fuck that woman. Dealer? Check. Called CPS on a client? Check. It counts. Real short and simple, yes. A friend of my girlfriend introduced us to her neighbors who were like 50 to 60-year-old hippies that looked like a badass a trip but bought weed regularly for full price. Couple months down the road they start being more friendly with my girlfriend and I and start talking more when we'd go drop off the shit. The topic began with her telling us how she has custody of her daughter's oldest born because her daughter was sitting time at a women's prison. Backstory on the kid, looks 15 but clearly has the mind capacity of a 6 or 7-year-old. Not sure what was wrong with her specifically, but you could tell there were issues. Near the end of the conversation about her daughter, she brought up the fact that her granddaughter was prescribed Adderall 30XR and whenever they got her prescription they'd dump all the little beads into a bowl to use whenever they couldn't find meth or whatever they needed and instead filled the Adderall with Benadryl to make the kid sleep. Till this day I'll never forget the emotions I felt after getting out of there and sitting in my car. My hands were shaking so bad it was hard to Google information about CPS. Much less type information in. I felt goosebumps in every pore of my scalp. As a father of 2 I never knew such evil existed. Obviously in movies and shit but never experienced something firsthand like that. Holy shit, Benadryl is one of the most neurotoxic OTC substances and I know how that can fuck you over with extended use in any amount. I was doing that stuff constantly for a while over the summer. I was a dumbass for this but wanted to escape reality even more so and deliriums are fucked, and I felt horrible. As someone with ADHD as well, it's horrible to hear about her taking her meds and replacing them with fucking Benadryl. Fuck her. Twice. Left anonymous tips, which I know are hard to follow up for such a strained child protection agency, but as a pot dealer it was all I felt I could do. I found out later one of the kids was put into foster care, adopted by the foster parents, and recently graduated a trade school. I have no idea about the other kids, siblings. But I hope they made it too. Kids should be protected. Humans only get one childhood. Let's let kids enjoy it, and grow to happy adults. Don't hurt them intentionally or by your own stupidity. That also means washing your hands, people. Edit 1. Thanks for all the kind words, guys. A guy in the comments pointed out something that everyone should know. If you need to report to CPS you flood them with details. Lots of details. It's the only way they can act. A one-sentence tip won't cut it. Just a PSA: if you're going to leave an anonymous tip, we can find people by address and phone numbers most of the time but we need some details to match up the correct house and family. A lot of times multiple families are living in one house together, so not all the people are there at once. We can't go out on drug use alone. You have to give details about how it's affecting the kid's dirty home. No food, eating cigarettes, pimping out 4-year-old for money, that kind of shit. Most of the time states have very specific guidelines on what child protection is allowed to assign a social worker for. Details are our best friend. This was a long time ago, and I've since gotten clean and started my own family. But there was a girl I knew who was homeless with her newborn son. On Easter weekend, I was walking on this trail to go meet with some people to sell them a sack. It started raining and that, of course, made me mad. There's these bridges that cross over the top of the trail and lots of kids gather and smoke or get spun under the bridges. And that's where I found her. She was passed out drunk with some random guy under the bridge while her newborn baby sat strapped in his car seat in the rain. He wasn't under the bridge. He was crying. And he looked dirty. I didn't have any children at this point, but I panicked seeing the little guy. I grabbed him, dropped all the shit I was supposed to be selling, and walked off the trail and up the couple blocks to the police station. I told them what happened and where I'd found him. CPS took him and he ended up getting adopted. Edit. Wow guys, thanks for the awards. Y'all are amazing. I like to believe I was just the first one to come across that scene. I want to think that nobody would leave an infant in the rain clearly being ignored/neglected by his obviously incapacitated mother/caretakers. You did good. That child may never know just how much your panicked decision changed his life, but it did. Good for you for turning your life around to smile. Former dealer here. It's been many years now, but I sold crack, heroin, pills, cocaine as a teenager. I once had a lady come in the trap house with a newborn. She was literally selling herself and or her baby for a few rocks. When I saw the newborn in shitty diapers and dirty as fuck, I knew I had to give her a few rocks. I let her smoke and leave. I also called BCW, Bureau of Children's Welfare, on her as soon as she walked out. She lived on my street. I couldn't let her try to sell her baby. I couldn't let her keep it either. I just couldn't call the police. The baby was in a foster home less than a week later. The lady disappeared shortly after. I never saw her again. I hope she never got the baby back. She was a real piece of shit. Some people should never get their children back. Lots of addicts try to sell kids for drugs. It's awful. I know CPS tries to keep families together, but sometimes the kid is just better off without the parent. Back in college I went over to a single mother's house to drop off some bud. The kid was 3 years old. I walk in and notice it is extremely smoky, and I immediately have a hard time breathing. It smelled like rotten shit, trash, and cigarettes. I was there for about 3 minutes and went to use the bathroom, where I noticed fresh and dried blood on the toilet and shit smeared all over the floors and up the walls. The shit was old and hardened, and dead bugs were in the corners of the bathroom and piled on top of the feces. But that isn't the only icing on the cake. Once I left the bathroom, I went back out to the living room area and saw a big-ass rat run right across the floor. Looked like he came right out of Ratatouille. Then the mother asked me if I wanted to take opioids, so I got the fuck out of the house and called CPS. Throwaway. A mother wanted to buy 70 perks at once before a family trip. She had a 9-year-old in the car. Called CPS on the bitch. Never will I ever deal you drugs in front of your kids. Fuck. Drop them off, eyes. I took less than 70 perks over the course of several months after shattering my shoulder. I don't even want to imagine how constipated she was. Thank you to everyone who stood up for the children. I want to share my story, being on the opposite side of you/many B's question. I was a user whose dealer called CPS on them. Many years ago me and my partner were addicted to opiates. We had a steady dealer for a while and eventually my partner was able to start selling after finding a new source. Well, our old dealer didn't like losing business, so he hit us where it would hurt the most, our child. He had called and made up some bogus claims. When the police came it was just me and the child and the place was clean and had food. I got them to leave, but CPS showed up a couple hours later. The truth is we were full-on functioning addicts who wanted freedom, but didn't know where to seek it. We followed the requests of CPS and the drug court exactly how they asked and with no setbacks. Both have completed 3 months of residential and 3 months of outpatient treatment and we're back home with our child in time for the holidays. We have been sober since 2012. The reason I want to share this is to give thanks for those of you who have had to make that call. Not only did my child get a chance at a good life, our whole family did.